Hey everyone, thank you for choosing Williampedia. I make funny videos about historical facts that I find online. Subscribe if that sounds interesting to you. If you have any ideas for videos, please throw them in the comments. Today we're going to be ranking the bottom 5 worst presidents in American history according to the 2022 Siena College study. We're going to be ranking them based purely on aura and vibe. I saw a YouTuber named Tommy Tears do a very similar video to this. Quite frankly, Tommy's video was awful, and I think that I could do a better job. Franklin Pierce was the 14th president of the United States. He ranks 5th worst overall president in U.S. history, according to a 2022 study. In terms of aura, Pierce certainly had some. He was a lawyer with little to no legal knowledge. However, he had a talent for people, and he's remembered as being very handsome, as far as presidents go, and people stated that he had a soothing, deep voice and personal charm. For these reasons, many people compare him to the modern-day YouTuber Chaney? What? You guys? I mean, hey, it's what it says. President James K. Polk wanted to make him the Attorney General. However, he denied the appointment so that he could serve as a real general in the Mexican-American War. He is also the 7th youngest president in U.S. history. Everything I've said about Pierce thus far was entirely true, but he had many, many flaws. He was a lifelong alcoholic who supported slavery and made countless legislation mistakes that led to the Civil War. Some people consider him to be solely responsible for the Civil War. While the story of him turning down the job of Attorney General just to fight in war sounds like aura, but when you hear how well he fought, it comes off as kind of proud. During the Battle of Contreras, he was leading a charge on horseback when the horse became spooked, hitting him in the balls with the saddle and collapsed on top of his leg, severely injuring his knee. From a distance, it appeared that he had fainted. So that's how it was remembered, with many soldiers saying, quote, "General Pierce is a damned coward." It only got worse as the war went on. On the day after this embarrassment, during the Battle of Churubusco, General Winfield Scott ordered him to take up the rear and have a more defensive position, for obvious reasons, to which Pierce demanded that he lead his troops despite his injury, saying, quote, "For God's sakes, General, this is the last great battle, and I must lead my brigade." He tied himself to his saddle and rode into battle. Hey, that rhymes. Only to pass out due to the immense pain of his knee. Embarrassing. He wasn't a coward, but he was definitely an idiot. He also didn't fight during the entire Battle of Mexico City because he had diarrhea. Not exactly a war hero. Additionally, he was a poor excuse for a president. He enacted legislation that supported slavery and repealed legislation that opposed slavery. Though, a potential excuse for his poor leadership is the fact that weeks before his election, he watched his son get fucking decapitated in a train wreck right before his eyes. I mean, these are things that could only happen in the 1800s. Like, your son gets decapitated in a train wreck? Are you joking? His wife blamed him for their only remaining son's death, and neither of them ever recovered. This caused his alcoholism to worsen, and he died due to cirrhosis of the liver at age 64. A tragic Democrat who was too proud for his own good and an alcoholic. He's honestly F tier. Warren G. Harding was the 29th president of the United States. He ranks 4th worst overall president in U.S. history. In terms of aura, Harding had a decent bit. While I don't personally see it, he was considered very handsome during his presidency, with biographer and likely closet homosexual Malcolm Gladwell describing him to have, quote, "lusty black eyebrows contrasted with his steel gray hair to give the effect of force. His massive shoulders and bronzed complexion gave the effect of health." I've never heard eyebrows described as lusty. How are eyebrows lusty? I digress. Thanks to Harding's apparently sexy appearance, he was constantly cheating on his wife, like throughout their entire marriage. One such lover, Carrie Fulton Phillips, lasted nearly 15 years before they broke up in 1920. She was one of his wife's closest friends, too. Harding was convinced that he was infertile. Classic fuckboy tactic, by the way. Though it was proven in 2015 that he had gotten one of his mistresses pregnant, and she gave birth to his illegitimate and only daughter. However, he denied her legitimacy until the day he died. What a guy, right? Like, Harding walked so Kennedy could run so Clinton could sprint. Gone too soon. You would have loved Bumble. Outside of Harding's lusty eyebrows, he is ranked so low because his presidency is peppered with corruption on multiple levels. One such scandal, known as the Veterans Bureau scandal, involved a bunch of government officials who Harding had put into office, essentially defrauding World War I veterans. They would take funds intended to pay for construction of hospitals and purchasing of supplies and just pocket it for themselves. In their defense, though, it was only World War I. I mean, these veterans were a bunch of babies. Rub some dirt on it. Quit crying about your shell shock, ladies. In Harding's defense, he took no part in the corruption, but he also didn't really care that it was happening. According to historians Eugene Chaney and David Wilson, quote, "The Harding presidency appeared to be far more concerned with political liabilities of a scandal than in securing justice." Essentially, he only ever cared that the corruption made him look bad, not that they were stealing from infirm veterans. He also had parties at the White House during Prohibition that used government-confiscated liquor. Nope. He was also an avid gambler who played poker twice a week with his cabinet. During his last moments, his wife was reading him a puff piece article that was praising him as a president. She was taking a brief pause in reading when he said, "That's good. Go on, read some more." These were his last words. It's very funny to me that the guy died while asking his wife to continue glazing him. He's like, wait, they said I'm cool? What was that part about me having a big dick? What is that? Is that true? Like, they actually said that? Oh, fuck, I'm dying. This is over 6 inches. He was an oblivious, womanizing Republican who loved to gamble and drink. I'd say, honestly, A tier. Cheating on your ugly wife is pretty cool. Donald Trump was the 45th and is the 47th president of the United States. He ranks 3rd worst overall president in U.S. history. In terms of aura, Trump has some, but it's complicated. Trump was a millionaire by age 8, as his father paid him and all his siblings a yearly stipend of $20,000, which when adjusted for inflation is roughly $265,000 a year. He attended a military academy in high school and was an ROTC for 1 year in college, but dropped it. He went to college at UPenn and has claimed previously that he went to, quote, the hardest school to get into, the best school in the world, calling it, quote, super genius stuff, though there is no evidence proving or disproving this statement. Side note, this Wikipedia article is obnoxiously full of these little nerd owns of Donald Trump. They even doubt whether he had bone spurs whenever he was being drafted for the Vietnam War. Let's say he did have bone spurs. Okay, so he wasn't drafted for a valid condition. Let's say he didn't have bone spurs. Okay, so he dodged the draft to one of America's lamest wars. I just mean to say that I don't know why these people feel the need to smear Donald Trump's name over these little things whenever he is literally a super pedophile rapist. And he is. There is a lot of evidence for it. It's not a matter of opinion at this point. But I'm not ranking them based on their moral character. It's just aura and vibes. And unfortunately, Trump has a lot of aura. I know some people are going to disagree with me on this, but I find the fact that Donald Trump lies about things to be very, very funny. Because some of the things that he lies about don't even matter. Here's a short list of things he's lied about. Predicting 9/11.
I predicted Osama bin Laden would knock out the World Trade Center. I made that prediction a year before he did it.
He suggested Ted Cruz's dad helped kill JFK.
All I did is point out the fact that on the cover of the National Enquirer, there was a picture of him and crazy Lee Harvey Oswald having breakfast. Now, Ted never denied that it was his father.
He said white people weren't allowed to get the COVID vaccine.
The left is now rationing life-saving therapeutics based on race. If you're white, you don't get the vaccine, or if you're white, you don't get therapeutics. It's unbelievable to think this.
For some reason, he claimed that the U.S. Army is trying to convert all tanks to electric-powered vehicles.
And now we are a nation that wants to make our great army tanks all electric.
He claimed that he was the first president in a long time to have no wars, despite being involved in 3.
We had no wars. It's been 81 years since that happened for a president. No wars.
He has frequently claimed he, quote, heard a story where an unnamed South American country sent all of its psych patients to the United States.
I read a story not long ago where a man who takes care of a large segment of people in a mental institution in a South American country, he said he no longer has anything to do. He used to work 24-hour days. He said all of our patients have been released into the United States of America.
He said his uncle knew and taught Ted Kaczynski.
Oh, my uncle was at MIT, one of the great professors. Kaczynski was one of his students. Do you know who Kaczynski was?
While also adding,
there's very little difference between a madman and a genius.
Which is a pretty ambiguous thing to say about the Unabomber. According to Congress, by 2021, Trump had made roughly 32,000 false or misleading statements. Yet, he still won the presidency twice. No political experience, massive history of failed businesses, countless sex crimes committed, survived an assassination attempt, called Adam Schiff
watermelon head,
and Bette Midler, washed up psycho Bette Midler, good friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and he won. That's the American dream. What a tragic statement. I mean, as sad as that is to say, it's true. His aura is S tier. There is no one in the world who is even half as popular as he is. He's not even human. James Buchanan Jr. was the 15th president of the United States. He ranks 2nd worst overall president in U.S. history. In terms of aura, Buchanan had something? He was a Pennsylvania-born lawyer who slowly climbed his way through the Democratic Party, holding a nearly 41-year-long career in politics. Despite his vast political experience, he was not only ineffective as a leader, but he was also so unhelpful leading up to the Civil War that people used to call it Buchanan's War because of how little he did to help it and how much he did to start it. Biographer Gene Baker said of Buchanan, quote, "In his betrayal of the national trust, Buchanan came closer to committing treason than any other president in American history. He supported slavery and the Dred Scott decision that upheld the the idea that African Americans would be permanent property of their slave owners and could never fully be U.S. citizens. He barely prepared the Union for civil war. After having many people tell him that they needed to fortify Fort Sumter for the incoming Confederate attack, he asked his Secretary of Defense what he should do. His Secretary of Defense at the time was future Confederate General John B. Floyd, who advised him not to. I wonder why. Trust me, dude, America will never go to war with each other. It's just common sense. Wow, you really think so? I mean, how is it common sense? I'm not going to tell you. Also, if you prepare for war, you're gay. I'm not gay! Speaking of Buchanan not being gay, he was definitely gay. He had a lifelong friendship and a domestic living situation with the 13th Vice President, William R. King. While historians could neither confirm or deny whether there was an actual physical or romantic relationship between the two, there still exist letters that were shared between the two that, I mean, come on. King was serving as ambassador to France, and he missed his good friend, James Buchanan, writing, I am selfish enough to hope you will not be able to procure an associate who will cause you to feel no regret at our separation. Essentially, he's hoping that he won't move on to somebody else while he's gone. I mean, come on. Buchanan got pretty busy during this time period and didn't respond for a while, forcing King to respond in a very sassy fashion with, this verifies the old adage, out of sight, out of mind. In one of the other letters, King also remarks that someone who has more the spirit of a man should replace him in his diplomatic position. He's literally calling himself too feminine to serve in public office. That's very gay. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, some people even find gay men attractive. Like straight women. He was the only president to never marry. He predicted before his death that, quote, history will vindicate my memory, but he has been heavily criticized and consistently ranked at the bottom of the U.S. presidents of all time. America's first gay president was a Confederate Democrat who supported slavery. His aura is G tier for gay. No, he's actually C tier. Andrew Johnson was the 17th president of the United States. He ranks #1 worst overall president in U.S. history. In terms of aura, Johnson is the biggest failed alley-oop of all time. He was born into poverty and spent most of his youth drifting through the Carolinas working as a tailor, finally deciding to settle down in Tennessee. I have nowhere else to include this fact, so I'm just gonna say it. Apparently, his dad died when he was young from a heart attack after ringing the town bell too hard. Isn't that just the most 1800s shit you've ever heard? There's more. He was ringing it because he had just saved 3 men from drowning. Wow, Jacob Johnson sounds pretty cool. Surely his son didn't horribly handle Reconstruction in the South and cripple the African American community to this day, did he? Yeah, he did. He was also the last president to own slaves. He had 10. This one was his favorite. Abraham Lincoln selected Johnson to be his vice president. He only picked him because he was a Democrat, though Lincoln probably should have looked into Johnson a little bit more before selecting him, because the night before the inauguration, he drank incredibly heavily. He woke up the next morning with a horrible hangover, and to prepare for the following ceremony of inauguration, he drank 3 glasses of whiskey and made his way to the Senate chamber. He proceeded to give the single worst inaugural speech in U.S. history, and it has been described by Wikipedia as hostile, inane, incoherent, repetitive, self-aggrandizing, and sloppy. He also kissed the Bible for no apparent reason other than he was drunk. You're supposed to just put your hand on it. Whenever he finished speaking and tried to walk out of the chamber, Lincoln even asked the inaugural marshal to make sure that Johnson would not continue talking outside the building. Lincoln was incredibly embarrassed, but not nearly as embarrassed as Lincoln was when he was assassinated in 1865. How embarrassing. But what you might not know about the assassination was that it was actually part of a 3-person conspiracy to kill Lincoln, Johnson, and current Secretary of State William H. Stewart. Lincoln was successfully killed, Stewart was badly injured, and Johnson didn't even know that he was going to be assassinated because his would-be assassin decided to get plastered instead of kill him. All right, everybody meet back here once you've killed your target. Nah, I'm gonna get fucked up. Johnson vetoed the 14th Amendment, you know, the one that grants previous slaves citizenship and punishes Confederates. He also vetoed the Civil Rights Bill. Not a lot of presidents you can say did that. He spent the entirety of his presidency letting Southern states rejoin the Union with no repercussions. He wanted to let the South recover gracefully at the cost of African American liberty. He was impeached for overextending himself governmentally, but not convicted. I think historian Glenn W. LaFontaine put it best. Johnson is a particular favorite for the bottom bottom of the pile because of his impeachment, his complete mishandling of Reconstruction policy, his bristling personality, and his enormous sense of self-importance. Andrew Johnson was just lucky to be in the right place at the right time. Right place being Lincoln's vice president, and right time being shortly after he was shot in the back of the head. He was a rude, sometimes drunken Democrat who helped the South recover gracefully with no repercussions. He's a B tier because it's kind of funny that he gave his speech so bad that even Abraham Lincoln was like, bro, who is this guy? That's the video, everybody. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. This one's been a long one in the making because I haven't been making it. I've just not been making it at all. But I'm going to try to get back into the regular schedule every 2 weeks. So if you liked it, comment, subscribe, let me know. Comment down below if you want to be a guest animator or if you like to waltz with potatoes. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.